to Kalamata. You still see old wells with the device they use for hauling up the rope. It's kind of a double cone, if you will. I think this may be the old road into Kalamata. I'm just trying to pick up some evidence of the old Greece. Lots of olive trees. Now we're in the southern part of the Peloponnese. And if I do get to Kardamyli, we'll be on the water in the Mediterranean. You almost swear that was a minaret, but it's a Christian church. Is it a mini mosque?
Garden of a pub on the edge of the wall. So I've not done the walk. That's good. How many miles were you doing a day?
Oh, okay. Thanks. This is the upstairs in my dhomatia, which is a room to let in someone's house, which of course they've redone to accommodate several units, like 5 or 6 actually, because this is number 6. This is the little room, and has a refrigerator, a hot plate for cooking, and sink, and of course bathroom. Saying I don't use a shower curtain, which really is not necessary. Just make sure you point the water thingy towards the corner. It took me probably all of about 10 minutes after I got off the bus to go to the ice cream shop, ask her where I might find some dhomatias. She pointed me up the road, circled around, didn't find any signs indicating one. Asked the lady who was coming out of her house, she pointed to another house. I came down here and here I are. I'll give you an idea of the pretty little location, spectacular location, beautiful views. And this is the family, that's Poppy, I guess, and Grandma. I'll show you the rest as I walk out. This town's economy used to include fishing, but no more. Now it's primarily tourism. And really, that's it. What they call the first floor. Rooms 1 through 3, I believe. And then the owner and her family live in here. Up there is my hostel. This lady carries a big burden on her back. Older lady, but she carries flowers from some garden that she pulls them from. So we'll take a look at the town now. A pretty place, because it's an old town that probably was dead were it not tourism, so therefore it converts everything and restores everything. This is apparently a little plaza that accompanies the church. You can imagine this during its history. Look at the size of these trees, even though this square had a history. Perhaps a past community important person. I'll go over there to the ice cream shop. Thank the girl for giving me directions. Here's a Greek-like emblem with a Greek flag flying. Little fountain. I wonder what history this has. How long it's been there. The water, he said, is very good to drink right out of the tap because it flows, I gathered, off the mountain fountain, but the ambience of this town and its draw, of course, is just next to the Mediterranean Sea. So I would find probably Ellie's restaurant for nostalgic reasons. Plus it's supposed to be one of the best. But look at this old building. I think most of them here are old. This one not yet restored. This, I believe, is the Monument of Heroes and a symbol of Greek unity. Looking for the path behind the monastery. I don't think this is it, but it's taking me down to the shore, which is interesting anyway, so we'll do it. I don't know if these terraced olive groves are part of the monastery or not. Well, this coastline's as rugged as the mountains that we're getting here. Not the place you come out and lie in the sun for long, or anywhere that I can see that's flat, not to mention comfortable, except over there is a beach. So let's see if we can get there. It's like this road I'm walking down is simply a residential road. Ellie's restaurant's supposed to be down here. That last restaurant didn't bother to have a name, so you know what it is. That's confidence. Sparsely settled Mediterranean setting. Quiet and idyllic. This is the beach. Don't know whether these rocks were brought in or have always been here, or natural. I thought this was the monastery, but I could be wrong. Maybe it's just the church. Looks like an exterior elevator. I wonder if we have such things. I've been at a tiny little grocery store there and bought some fruits, very lovely fruits and tomatoes. And now I'm working towards the sea. Didn't find anything particularly interesting on the main drag. Although Layla's is supposed to be the one that John was telling me about, the Englishman I met who has a home in the next town down. Walk down and see it, and maybe this is where I'll come to eat. It's supposed to be a restaurant also. I wonder what legend says is the age of this olive tree. Think of the times it's been cut back, grown over itself, sprung from itself. Layla's, which is behind those trees, is the one that John said was so good, and it's got signs all around, but it looks like it's closed. I mean, like for the season. This place is called Vias, and it's got flowers and plants on the tables and chairs next to the tables, so one would think it is open. So maybe I'll find out about this. But certainly this is a beautiful place to sit and have dinner, an early dinner before it gets chilly. I could park my big yacht right there. Or if I don't want to be so blatant, perhaps I can get a slip in the little harbor. So I walked down and found the restaurant, or the bar I'm going to eat a salad at tonight, right on the water. Now we'll cross over here and roam around a bit. So I'll just walk up here and find a spot or a street that goes left and go left. Work my way back to my hostel, or my little, whatever it is, dhomatia'iin. Get my hiking poles and hike up to the monastery up there. Pretty balconies, new obviously, but the building's probably restored. This is the main street. There aren't very many streets that go up to the right till you get down right into the center of town, probably because this, first of all, the ocean's to the left and that's where the side streets go, but this town is small because it never was big, and now it's really just converting what it has for tourism, and as tourism grows, probably hotels and so forth, and a couple are already there, will start to expand upwards. My guess is that a number of hotels and businesses are not open until summer gets here, which is a few more weeks. Maybe their shoulder season, although I don't know that they have, I don't think they even have a winter season. Down there, the square, there's a street up here. I'll go up and see if I can through that olive grove without getting in too much trouble. It looks like it ends there. It's a pretty little lane that I hope leads to the path that takes me up to Church Sofia. Directed me to my rooms. Lots of rooms down at the other end of town. But I prefer to be here where it's about to start raining. Isn't this wisteria pretty? Many of the homes here are owned either by probably long generations or foreigners like John. And I believe this path may take me up into what's called Old Town also. So we shall see, that being Old Town. There was probably a natural spring flowing out through here, as you can see, and then providing water down below. Whether that's part of the Old Town, I don't know. Water sloshing out of here at a prodigious rate. Maybe that's slightly diverted original spring. I don't know if this road I'm following is going to take me up there. May have to backtrack. I'm betting I probably do. On the other hand, this may be the old monastery that Rick was talking about. I think that may be the hotel, however. How are you? This is Kardamyli Old Town and the monastery, I guess. This is apparently an even older church. For safety reasons, they don't want anybody rummaging around in there. It's a pretty tower. It certainly looks like the kind of spot you'd build a fortress in back up there, doesn't it? We'll take a little look at the detail up there. The detail. Whether this was placed long after, I don't know. But 1818. These also may be remnants from some earlier church. An idea of the thickness, probably about 3 feet. We've entered into apparently its courtyard. The arch implies there was some more to this history, perhaps just a stairway though of access up there, I don't know. Certainly looks fortress-like, doesn't it? So apparently we're looking at the battlements here, I guess. We'll climb up here and take a look at these 2 levels. Here's the first. Some kind of a room. And here you can see there was a narrow passageway for soldiers perhaps to move if that was original. We'll climb up here. Inner space. For what purpose, who knows? Access to that top of that building. Top floor, I should say. Here we're up at the part I thought might have included where someone came, but I wonder why that hole comes out there. It looks more like it's just a drainage ditch. The tower was the last refuge of the defenders, built at the turn of the 17th to the 18th century, repaired in 1808. Apparently this was the prison. So you know that by the time you stood here, you were really scared. But you had absolutely nothing to lose because this was the last point. On the other hand, to paraphrase a typical Woody Allen comment, you had a great view. Well, that looks like it's all abandoned up there. A ledge that probably held a wooden ledge for the defenders to stand on. These holes here, I rather suspect that you can't see through most of them, though some of you can, were designed for roofs. In other words, joists or for a second floor. Here's a big grinding stone, that's interesting. And doesn't look very solid though, as though you'd be eating a lot of grit. This used to be used for growing vegetables, because they've actually found evidence of vegetable patches in here. Of course, you can see the firing ports there also. Just an inner courtyard behind the wall. These were firing ports. And this path takes us up to the Sofia church. The alcove was a shrine, as you can see from the niches there. 2 arches, one filled in, one has a hole in it. Another niche there. My little hat flashlight, I could see that the room's just a little undercut of erosion cave, if you will, just about as high as this outside portion, and then it slopes down to a wall and drops, and then it's probably about a couple feet below this grade. Here's the view of the spectacular countryside from there, and you'll see all of the caves there with some kind of human enterprise at that one, so perhaps they were used as occupation by some over the centuries. So here is Agia Sofia, or the Church of Sofia. But as I pan about on the ground, you'll see there's obvious evidence of this place being worked just like that hillside near the Acropolis the other day. So how far back in antiquity this goes, who knows? And for what purposes it might have been used. The niche over the door once had some paintwork on it. We'll go up and take a closer look at it. Reminiscent of the pottery we saw in the Archaeological Museum and in the Acropolis Museum. On that nearby hilltop, another church. They all kind of, frankly, look the same. At least when they look this worn, they look authentic, and that's kind of nice. And with these big blocks of stone, that's interesting, because oftentimes they're made out of what looks like an adobe brick. And it may be that some of these stones came from these surrounding rocks that I'm standing on that have obviously been worked by man. Like right here. These look like some rather recent graves. Over there, that looks like a perfect place where they would have quarried that stone. So I'm back at this bar I saw this afternoon for dinner. Very romantic, pretty setting. I wonder what that structure is up on that hill. I think those must have dramatic views, those houses up above that. I talked to a man up at the Sofia church when I got there, Agia Sofia, and he said, he was from Germany, I think, he said that he had two houses up behind me, a little bit higher up, and knew some friends that had them, and he says, it's not really good because you live up here, and it's too much walking, he said, and if you live up here, you're going to die from the walking. Of course, he was 3 sheets to the wind, and I got about a half-hour political polemic, if that's not redundant, on Obama, Putin, the Greeks, the Italians. I don't think he left anybody out. It's a pretty little town, pretty much converted over now to raw tourism, but the busy season has not started yet, so it still has a quaint feel to it. The old man's business. I saw him sitting here, and I looked through the windows, and you can see that old refrigerator there and the stove. And that is his, I think, his son up there. Yeah. And this is an old scale here. Yeah. Another one here, yes, yeah. And then the old shelves like that up there. Yeah. The counter. And that would be where you would keep the cash register there for security. And I made that particular diversion. I got to chat with that gentleman as much as two people who don't speak each other's language could communicate, and we did. Guess is that that building was and still is his life, and he probably lives in it somewhere. He just was sitting in a chair. There's nothing in there to attract you other than those few items I showed you and the apparent antiquity of the place. It was kind of fun. It's still quiet now because the season has not yet started. A few tourists about, but mainly the locals. But the shopkeepers are optimistic, those are all open. Interesting how little I like to have long conversations. I like short little conversations, but not long. Well, as the sun settles down and night settles in, old folks sitting in the chairs near the park, father playing soccer with his son, his mom looks on and assists a bit. Here a bunch of old folks and a few probably tourists sitting here chatting at the end of the day. No, they're locals, all of them. I'll get some ice cream. So up there on that flat knoll that's straight ahead of us is where I hiked last evening. It's a good hike. Early morning, about 6:45. Bus leaves at 7:30, or at least the pickup is at 7:30. Room has its own little deck hinging mechanism for these wall shutters that have to get this far out. This mechanism gets them, pivots them out, and then this can come up here to lock them in place when they're open like that, I think, and it's used to keep them from slamming shut, I think. Here we're looking at the memorial to heroes, if you will, 1912 to 1918. Here at 7 o'clock. Quiet morning. Thirsty. This is a cute little planter. Has a little frog on it. The little frog makes noises. It goes, "Brig it." And these kids think I'm weird, but a snail. Notice this is made out of rebar and just 3 pipes, really. Notice the dimensions. Finally on a bus. This will be an interesting day because there was no 7:30 bus like they told me in Kalamata, and the 8 o'clock bus is late, leaving through Kardamyli, which means I won't be taking my 8:30 bus out of Kalamata to Pylos. So who knows? Like I say, an interesting day. Lots of different buses bring kids to this school from all over this disparate area. Good hiking in the area if you can do that. Brit I talked to who bought a house here, his pleasure in being here is he wants to do a little bit of hiking, but he wants to work in his garden, and he's going to be doing a lot of continual maintenance, like revarnishing his wooden doors and so forth. So village. I assume it's a house, it might not be. Notice how rugged that landscape is. Solar panels. Kalamata. Okay, so over there is the railroad station, and I've got 5 hours to blow between now and the time my bus takes off. Just to orientate us, I'm not sure what this is. It may be a market. There's a big bluff. I don't know what that's all about yet. I'm just going to explore. That's a pretty new church. I guess it's newer, either that it's newly painted. And so we'll just wander around now what this is here. I'm guessing that this is a big market, and we'll go explore it a bit for this part of Kalamata. Now, somewhere over there is a town square that we went through, or what passes for it, so we'll be wandering that way too. It's appropriate that we're here in the fruit section because we now have to make lemonade out of the day. So much more refined than our usual big marketplaces, and maybe they have one of those things here too. Kalamata is a fairly good sized town, although I don't know how big it is. It's probably where the market takes place for fish and meat and so forth when they're having their big market day, which is not today. And I'm just guessing that's true because there's water on the floor, which my thinking says might be the remains of their having cleaned up from the last big market day. And a dog still wandering with Hope over there. Irony is I'm wandering through this market with a fairly heavy bag full of fruit and veggies. I think we get to the part of every market which is the household goods, if you will. Just the kind of stuff you need. Although this is not that either. I'm thinking this is an off day for the market. There'll still be some things here, but just enough for people to get what they normally would get if they weren't going to the market day. See, this would probably be a pretty big deal day. What this pedestal historically stands for, I don't know. Maybe they actually slaughtered animals here because this is the meat market. Well, kind of answers part of that question. Talk about raw hope. Here's sitting on the side of the meat processing plant, trying to figure out whether it's got the guts to challenge the dominion of this three-legged cat. Well, you know they're going to get some scratch. This has got to be a classic scene. The fish section is kind of reduced today again because it's not the big market day. But still, if you got to get something, here it is. And of course, the ever hopeful, and of course the ever hopeful. Dramatic display for only having a limited supply of food. Here, and I could get my salmon really quickly and easily. And whatever this is, there's got to be something up on top. I think equally ironic, and here it's a toss-up of whether you take these guys home to eat them or to make them part of the family. They can only hope. Here in this section, I've realized is the plant section, if you will. Not only do they have plants for sale and seeds and that sort of thing, but probably all kinds of pasta and that sort of thing. They're just an interesting little vignette. Views like this kind of redeem Athens in my mind. That's why we travel to see these kind of places. Here, out its back door, is the plant store where you can beautify your home. It tells you a lot about also what takes place behind the ugly walls we often see. Everything you need to deal with your garden. My guess is this is not a new church. It just looks that way because it's well maintained in the sense of its simplicity, i.e. probably a stucco surface with those older window details of stone. So it's easy for them to actually keep making it look new, which is a good thing in some way. I'm not sure if that man has a mustache and it's Hitler. Yes, it is Hitler. There's a swastika. And whether this is positive in favor of the Prime Minister of Greece. Here, the ever-present mix of new, maintained, and old. What this church may lack in spectacular exterior, it makes up for with a very beautiful interior. That blue color on that ceiling only begins to hint at the richness of. Walk by this pleasant back street and take a closer look at this church. Here, this parking lot in front of the church with statues of important bishops, no doubt. And here a family of what I think are gypsies, but I could be wrong. As soon as that boy saw me, he ran up to me and started begging and then started crying when I gave him the no sign. He's doing nothing less than what he's trained to do in his culture. That is, live off the people you encounter. In churches, oftentimes, this little building represents the burial spot of some quite important person. I don't know what it means here. Very simple ceiling decoration, but with somewhat Doric, I would suggest, if that's the middle level of the Greek column. Just seemed to be a pretty building. At first it impressed me with some of the feeling I get when I look at a lot of Muslim buildings, but this is not that. Pretty church here on the outside, of course, looking up above, which is often the case with architecture. It's interesting that it's churches that oftentimes, if not always, represent the most interesting architecture. Not always, but in a society. Even this element of probably access to church administration represents some interesting design. Whatever this building is, it's pretty from the front also. Over there across the street to what look like older buildings, and they look church-like when you see those little nave-like protrusions out the back. And that building behind it looks interesting. I love the balcony idea. I have to remember that, the multiple arched columned balcony. This is a little park I drove by because I remember these slab-like features. So I am now down where the bus passed by these statues. And as I video these people going about their day, they look at me as the pinky unicorn. No surprise. So another pan of this modest town square. I guess it's a town square, maybe it's just a square. It's a pretty building though. Jets fly over from the nearby Messini military airport. Okay, here's what appears to be a pretty old church. Focus on the church, please. That's why I do these things. Okay, now back to the church. Looking at the church again. So what's interesting is to look at the detail here. We'll take first of all a closer look at the bell tower. Nothing terribly impressive, but it is old. As old as this church is, whatever that is. Inside is where the glory will be, if there's going to be any. The detail here is in the use of stone for artistic expression. You wonder what that design around those windows is, if it has any particular significance. Simple but pretty entryway, just created by incising that relatively soft stone. Same with this window. Back at the square. Interesting looking street. Much more interesting looking than most of what I've seen of Athens. Just a cute photograph on the storefront. And there, some kind of a painting. An imaginative, long-term, efficient way to get design without worrying about having to maintain something. The building down here looks interesting, so we'll explore that a bit. There's one long building. My guess is that this building might have been a market at one time, and it may have even fronted that square, but it's all been filled in. This whole quarter that I'm walking through is all shops of all kinds of nature. So again, if you know what you're looking for, you can find it here. Old coffee and spice grinding machine. An old bike, probably just for display. All kinds of spices and so forth in here. Little cafe. This is a corridor that sweeps through this part of the city. Some parts of it are like a river, or at least the basin for one, or the channel for one. Some is just parking. It's a street, it almost looks park-like, so I'll see if I can get over there without getting killed. Being in Greece, it's hard to know which Greek goddess this represents, but here as we approach another part of this long strip, if you will, is what looks like an upscale restaurant, dramatic looking monument. Don't know if that upper portion lights or not, nor do I know what it stands for. Some jerk has already put graffiti on it, but this should give a little bit of optimism. At this point, like that strip shifts down here and in this direction. I'm going the exact opposite direction I believe the bus station is, but I think I've got quite a couple hours left away from that pursuit because of this fountain over here. And this is a bike path, believe it or not. Like I may be wrong, here's another wide pedestrianized, kind of pedestrianized street. So it looks like it branches back behind me there into two. So I'll return to what's called the Historic Center. That's obviously an older building. They're next to it, that's refreshing. It's the Rex Hotel. 99, I wonder if it's still in business as such. Now this is an older building that looks like it's deteriorating on its own. And here the upper story of this older building has not been mangled from its past. Probably an old building also. Not terribly impressive though, any of these, but they're old and that's in its context good. And probably even the ones where they've mangled the downstairs, that probably is the reason the upstairs still exists. Perhaps is a remnant of the past, a simple remnant. If Greece can ever recover, it's little side streets like this one that I'm walking, that will be one of the first to do so. Even now, they're probably very inexpensive rents. Those that have the courage to try. Some old doors, abandoned for the moment, but still in very restorable condition. This building is interesting if it reflects with these large swing-out windows and that double door. Some kind of an allusion to its retail past. A couple of old storefronts. Another set of doors I walked past before, but missed because I was focused on those photographs there. This is where I'm going to have another little salad. And right down from the church, as you can see, the bus stop should be off to my right and or behind me. This is what you do when the schedule completely falls apart. You just keep doing stuff. You're in a world, there's lots to see. Principally these black fellows you see all over Europe. And they obviously come from Africa. Exactly where, I'm not sure, but they're some of the lucky ones. And if they're smiling and if they seem in good condition, it's because they are, and they're happy to be here. Because a lot of their similar situated people died getting here as recently as I think it was either several hundred died en route to Sicily. But he's here, he's got it made. This is my salad, nothing out of the ordinary. Some kind of a mayonnaise-based dressing, I don't know what that is. This is a cute little tradition. Last night at a different restaurant I got a little short aluminum cylinder, but this is where they all put your little ticket, so you know how much you have to pay. Quite a cute idea. It's up the inclination to steal that shot glass would be. I want to take a closer look at this weather vane. It's a weather vane sitting on top of a chimney, so it has another function. Another pretty building in this older part of town. Another classic entryway. And notice the steel pins, if you will, offset a bit, designed to hold those rocks rigidly in a line, even though the lower right one didn't work completely.